All right, we are live with another episode. On today's episode, I interview a singer, songwriter, an illustrator, a poet, and a communications coordinator for Music Managers Forum Canada. Her debut single, Joan of Arc, is out March 24th on Spotify, and her single release house show is on April 6th in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Larysa Musick.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I learned about you. I attended one of my guests um, EP release parties, Shay Wolf, and you were the opener, and your performance just blew me away. Also, I just loved like your storytelling in between the songs and just your presence on stage. So I'm really excited to have you on here just to get to know you a bit more and to promote all the amazing things you're putting out.
I appreciate it. Well, I think you're pretty remarkable too. So I'm honored to be on here. And yeah, thank you. Sometimes I'm not sure if this stage banter is like if I'm blacking out or actually like paying attention to what I'm saying, but usually it works out.
Yeah, we'll just go with the flow and have a
Yeah.
great conversations. And the goal with all these conversations is to really uplift, inspire, and empower everyone listening along, just to move forward with greater faith and belief in themselves on their hero's journey ahead. And so the first question just sets up us on a really positive note, and that is right here, right now. Larissa, what do you love about your world right now? Not about like the external world, but what do you love about your personal world right here and now?
Oh yeah. I mean, just as a whole, I guess I love having more time to put into my creative artist project. I had a wonderful full-time job with Botanical Paperworks, which is a seed paper company. I was with them for a couple of years, and I still do freelance assignments for them right now. But I was recognizing that full-time was a work. I was taking away from this big dream I had set aside for a long time to, really take my songwriting seriously and put together, a collection of songs into the world, and so taking a break from that and then transitioning into a part-time role with MMF Canada really helped open that up. And I've been able to, I didn't realize how much 8 hours a day, 5 days a week had taken away from my ability to just sit in the nothingness and think about what I really need to do to, do the thing, do the life thing, So having that time right now is really, really great. And I know that, my career is going to be constantly changing over time. And so I just appreciate that I have this time right now.
And in this time right now, how would you describe your mission? And that's something I asked all my guests at the start of the interview so we can really get to know them. And that is like, what is your mission in all that you do? Your mission as a songwriter, your mission as a communications coordinator, as a friend, as all the roles you play. What would you say is the overarching mission that guides you in all that you do?
Oh, yeah. I guess that it's a loaded question. It'd be hard to answer it not from a million different angles, but I'll try and just do a Coles Notes. I think right now, again, it's constantly evolving, but I think it's from the perspective of my artist world right now, um, it's multifaceted, but definitely connecting with other women and non-binary folks in my community, and finding mentors in that community and uplifting them as well. I believe that you know women and gender fluid folks should be supporting each other and celebrating each other, and I'm like the opposite of competitive with people in this community, and I feel like that energy is very hyper present in everything that I do. And this first single is very much speaks to that. It's based off of or it's loosely inspired by a historical figure, a woman from the 1800s who was 16, who led a bunch of men into victory during battle, during the 300 years or 100 years war, 100 years war, not 300 years. Anyway, so that is like at the core of what I do artistically right now. And Yeah, from a communications coordinator perspective, well, I feel like, yeah, just speaking authentically whenever I can, whenever I'm making a newsletter for a client or in my current role with MMF, being authentic, being genuine. When you're working in social media, it's very easy to just yell at people and harder to actually, engage and actually recognize that they're real people behind the glass. So I try and do that too. And try and see beyond just this like little phone that stands between us. So that's something I'm trying to keep present in everything that I do. Sometimes it's difficult, but I'm pressing on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's like examine your journey to this single, this Joan of Arc single. When, and you can go back as far as you wish, but like when did the passion for music um become lit within your being? Like when did that passion, when did that fire get illuminated? And how did it develop?
Uh, I it definitely started when I was a kid, and my dad has a beautiful singing voice, sang in church choirs, and I would sing with him too, then at that time. And he sang in operettas and had a vibrato for days, and I kind of learned by copying him. Monkey see, monkey do. We usually get that when we're kids, and so the singing was very much a thing. Um, and that was the big spark that ignited everything else. And then it was just a slow but steady progression into like I've been across the map artistically, I guess. I've dabbled in many disciplines. At one point, I thought I wanted to be a comic book artist, and that kind of fizzled out. At one point, I thought I would be a musical theater performer. That also kind of fizzled out. I don't know. Maybe I'll get back to that. I don't know. Who knows? And theater and this and that, and then spoken word poetry. So I did competitive poetry slams for a number of years while I was in college, and I said I was artistic director of Winnipeg Poetry Slam, but technically I was slam master for Winnipeg Poetry Slam for a couple of years, which is a funny moniker for sure. And yeah, it makes sense that it came back to music for me. I'd been songwriting since I was a teenager, maybe even earlier. Before that, I was writing poems in like elementary school. I remember a bunch of boys in my class. I mean, bless their hearts, they were little boys, right? Didn't know. But I remember they stole my poetry book from me and were reading it out loud, and I was mortified. But I look back now, I'm like, that's great. Like you got embarrassed early. You got it out of the way. Now you're not afraid of anything. But yeah, so circling back to songwriting was something I kind of always knew in my gut that that's what I would end up doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, went all over the place before then, but it's informed what I do now, so it's great.
Hmm. Let's like we'll get back to the songwriting, but I'm just like super curious about like the comic book artists, like the musical theater and the spoken word poetry, and like you kind of went all in with all three of them, and you kind of said, okay, it's time to move on from all three. What's that process look like on kind of giving like up, not like just kind of taking energy off of something so that you could give it on to something else, like kind of shifting gears, and how's that process like? That's a lot of people get stuck, like, oh, they want to be a comic book artist and they just get locked onto that site and they can't see anywhere. And sometimes it's okay and it's good to kind of put something aside, maybe temporary, maybe who knows how long, and then if it's meant to be, it'll come on back. Like you're singing, right? You said you're singing and then you kind of got away from it and then it came full circle and you're back there now. So let's just talk about that process of just kind of giving up like your dream for comic book and then it evolving into musical theater and then it evolving into these years as spoken poetry, and just kind of the evolution of you in that series of
Yeah,
events.
yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. I guess I went on a self-help book kind of, deep dive for quite some time. Like I read probably all the books you can about how to manage your life as an artist. There's The
Uh-huh.
Artist's Way, there's The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. There's a few others. And then this recent one that I read a few years ago that my friend recommended to me called Essentialism stuck with me. Like the one principle that really clung to me and I didn't let go of was this idea of, the that essentialism can really help us manage our energy because, we like to think, I guess creativity is kind of like that energy. It's just an infinite resource. But then like physically, it kind of feels like it's a finite resource sometimes. We only have so much brain energy, so much physical energy, so much emotional energy to pour into, a discipline. And I know that, when I say yes to something, I'm saying no to 100 other something. So I'm very, I guess, decisive that way these days, or I try to like wield my energy very specifically because otherwise I'm like painting something, like writing, like doing too many things all at once. But I don't know. I also don't want to let go of those artistic disciplines either. And I'm sure I'll come back to them. It's just, yeah, I guess focus to me is really important, and managing time. And I don't know, it's a tricky little dance that I do, but I think it's also, following your intuition, what's it saying right now, and that can change. And that's also inspired by my grandmother. So she um, was raising her three kids alone when her husband and my, late Gigi passed away when she was around 30, I believe. And so she's raising her kids alone and she's becoming a broker. She's like the best in her field in real estate. She worked well into her 80s. Like even going for like heart checkups, she was like, but I gotta sell a condo tomorrow. Like she's very and she went back to school when she was 30 to become a broker. And she kind of believed that, you can always go back for more education. You can always change your career late in life. And nothing can stop you. And that has kind of been lighting the fire, so to speak, for me to just, it is a big thing to switch from one artistic discipline to another. And it's kind of like you've established yourself in poetry slams, and then you're kind of like, okay, you're starting afresh because now you pick up the guitar. But yeah, I don't know. I sat down one night and I was like, I'm going to learn Fire and Rain by James Taylor. And that's it. And I sat down there for like 4 hours every night. Yeah, I eat dinner and just sit there and do that. And I learned it. And then I was just kind of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to like get the guitar thing working for me. And it's going to probably take 5 years to like write a good song, but I'm going to do it and get back into it. And I think that's just what it takes. It's just finding that, yeah, just using your energy wisely, I guess, is what it comes down to for me.
And what like role did fear play in this process? So how did fear come up when you were transitioning from spending all this time in spoken word poetry and slam poetry, and then you're like, oh, well, I kind of want to sing again. How did fear raise its head, and how did you deal with it? And how do you continue to deal with fear, as I'm sure it comes up still?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, fear, she like I feel like I talk to her in like third person a lot. Like fear and anxiety are like I talk to them like they're my alter ego. I actually in fact used to call my anxiety Lars. When she would come up, I'd be like, "Oh, hi, you're back again. What's up? You're gonna take a back seat because we're supposed to get this done right now." And you're
Yeah.
spinning this narrative that's not helpful. So I'm often in conversation, I guess, with fear and anxiety. And I try really hard to not let them take the wheel, so to speak. I'm in the driver's seat. My dream is in the driver's seat, and it's amazing what you can get away with just like positive intention and focus. And not letting those things distract you. But yeah, it definitely comes up. Like I'm not saying that I don't have days where I'm like crippled by those things, but I'm always fighting back for sure. I think the fears transitioning out of poetry slam and of course like leaving my full-time job was, financial stuff. It was also like on a technical level, like I was a nobody going into music. Even though I had established artistic merit in poetry slams, it was a big transition. It was like, going from being an engineer to going into real estate, it felt like. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I gotta learn all those things. So I had a lot of fear about like, how am I going to be perceived? What are people going to think? People going to think I'm crazy because I'm doing all of these things. And I really had to just make that voice shut up, because there was just too much work to do. I had to learn fire and rain. I think I've told that story like a million times, but like it's just a really good concrete example of like, you just do the work, just like forget, just, you know, and stop with the monkey mind. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
What advice would you have for someone listening along and like they're feeling that call within, they're feeling that must, like that thing that um is just crying from within to do versus the shoulds of society. So like the shoulds of our parents or teachers or culture or society. But there's like a must, like within our being, our a knowing that we have to fulfill. And they're wanting to like, yeah, leave their job or like go on that trip or do that yoga training or like do that thing, write that book. But they're stuck, like they're paralyzed at that crossroads of should and must. From your lived experience, what advice would you have to offer to these individuals?
Oof. I guess this depends greatly on what their situation is. I mean, it's easy for me to say from maybe from my experience to someone else who has a similar like, upbringing or cultural background. I could probably give them that advice and it would reign true to them. But like I don't know, like it. I guess yeah, just always have faith in yourself regardless and know that so many things are survivable. Like people are surviving like the worst things right now abroad. And, and even though it's hard to like put yourself in their shoes and to, think about, whatever you're afraid of, you've gotten through worse before or people have gotten through worse before and put things in perspective, I guess. Not to compare suffering or anything. I think there's this. So my mom immigrated here to Canada when she was 16 from Poland, and she has that mentality in her that it's kind of ingrained in me. It's like you can survive on potatoes, like you can get through the worst. Not to like downplay things, but I think that's me also thinking about financial stresses right now. But um, yeah, I think yeah, it's all about, just have faith and believe in yourself and, it's amazing what you can get away with and what you can survive when you keep that faith and also like building that community of people who will support you is also really important too. And, giving back to them too. It's amazing what happens when you focus more on giving than what you take. And anxiety can really prevent you from being in a giving and receiving cycle if you're just thinking like I'm worried about this, I'm stressed about this. If you put yourself into like what someone else is worrying about, it might lessen the load, surprisingly, which helped me as well, just to like think big with other people. And I'm starting to ramble a little bit. I probably need to bring it back.
Oh, it's great. I love how you're
But
talking about community and the importance of
yeah.
community for you. So how do you cultivate community? So you've cultivated community in many sectors now. So what are the commonalities of creating community? Because we know from what you just said how important it is.
Yeah. Um, so I guess for me, it was when I decided I'm going to transition into music. Let's bring it back to that. I went to all of the conferences you could for music. I, utilized all the resources for Manitoba Music. That's a community that exists. Then you have Good and Plenty Producers Club, run by Lana Winterholt and crew, and they're doing really great things for women and non-binary folks in music production and creation. So I, joined that community, was helping them write a grant a little bit, and I try to attend as many functions with them as I can. I'm in a peer mentorship group through them, and another peer mentorship group through Manitoba Music. Like I try to really fill my time with, okay, let's connect with other people here. you know, the music scene is bigger than me. I kind of believe in this concept. No, I do believe in a concept called genius. So instead of seeing someone as the genius and, you know, just, you know, thinking that they have all the great ideas, start to think of it as multiple people are contributing to this elusive thing that exists beyond us called the genius, which is like the genius plus. And I feel like Winnipeg's music scene has that. You know, there's so much talent here that you go to another city and they're like, oh, Winnipeg. Yeah, it's bursting with amazing things and amazing people. And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know, that's genius. That's when we're like creating these clubs and these forums. We have Manitoba Music. And yeah, and I guess also like it, you know, social media can kind of be a time suck and people worry about it too, anxiety wise, but it, you know, also engaging with people, sharing what they posted or commenting, support your friends as much as you can, you know, and play shows with them and like don't compete with other women, man. You know, let's just stop. We're all wonderful. We all look great and sound great. And I think that comparison can really be a killjoy and just like it'll make you feel like you're separate from your other people. And like artistic pursuits can really set you back in that way where it makes you think you're in competition with everyone because there's finite resources. But I really believe in abundance. Like there's a lot out there. If you just choose to see it, it'll be there. I guess that's kind of whimsical to say, but I really do believe it.
Yeah, no, I believe in that too. I like to kind of shift topic a little bit to some of the other self-care tools that you use on your journey. So some things that I've heard, like big ones, is community. What are some other ways that you take care of your self-care that was just so important for someone that is like an entrepreneur and kind of going out on their own now that you quit your full-time job, you left your full-time job. It comes with a lot of stresses. And yeah, so what are some self-care fundamentals you've implemented into your daily routine that just help you keep grounded?
Yeah. Well, you'll like this. I been getting back into yoga. So I've been doing hot yoga at Moto Yoga in Winnipeg for the past while. And if I can't get to a hot yoga practice, I will do it at home. I use Five Parks Yoga on YouTube. I don't know, she casts from, you know, overseas, somewhere hot. And I watch that, I use that if I'm at home and can't leave the place. And that really helps me manage, you know, stress and anxiety because like as we know, you know, physical things manifest in the mind as well. I try and eat properly. I sometimes can like not eat as much protein as I should be. I don't know why. I think I tried to be a vegetarian for a few years when I was like a young or actually well I guess I'm still young. I guess I'm almost 30. I'm starting to think myself as old, but that's not true. Anyway, when I was 19, I tried to do the vegetarian thing and I think it set me back. So I try and like put a lot of focus, like drink enough water, eat enough protein, you know, the fuel is just as important as what you think. And then, yeah, getting enough sleep, letting myself rest. I think I can be really hard on myself. I'm like, I need to learn how to guitar solo now. Like, I need to get up at jams and be able to shred. But like, you know, practicing for 5 hours every night is not sustainable and you also need to rest. So getting proper sleep, you know, all of those things your mom and dad and, you know, guardians tell you to do. And then you're just like, no, I'm just going to have a drink tonight, you know, just like listen to them. They have something to say. And yeah, those things really help. Journaling, you know, keeping up the creative practice. You can get bogged down in like, I don't know, all of the business side of your art, but try not to get too bogged down in the business side. You know, it's also an artistic practice and you need time to like sit and write things. So do that. And yeah.
Okay, let's examine the journaling. You mentioned Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's Artist's Way earlier. What's your journaling practice look like? Let's start there.
Yeah. So admittedly, it's pretty inconsistent. I need to be doing it more regularly. Lately, I've been kind of letting that slip, but I'm aware of it now. I've been doing morning pages though, and those help. So it's just free free write. And sometimes the things that come out, you'd be surprised. And that kind of helps you exercise out, any, negative narratives that are going through your head and reframe things to start off your day. And yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing. Occasional free writes. Yeah.
And then what else, like how else does your creative process look like? So what does it look like for you to like write a song? Like what's that whole process? Like walk us through your creative process.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So that's a tricky one to pin down as a set in stone process. I think that I have tools, like I have a few different tools that I use depending on how I'm feeling.
Okay.
For writing lyrics, I like to so there's this technique that David Bowie actually used to use called the cut out up technique. So I don't actually cut out the words, but the technique is you cut out words and you create like like those fridge magnets, you have a bunch of words.
Yeah.
And, yeah, yeah. But like you do that with books. So what I like to do is I open up my notebook and I grab a book and I just find words that I like and I write it down and I don't think about it. And later when I'm stuck on writing, I flip to that page and I steal. So art is 10% stealing or more, probably. You're allowed to steal. So I do that. Like musically, if I feel like I need to figure out usually the guitar accompaniment, I figure that out second after lyrics and the melody. I figure out those usually a cappella by walking around melodies. It's just my way of bypassing any blocks I have on instruments because those things I learned later in life. But when you're just thinking about melodies and singing it, that comes more naturally to me. So I write that way. Um, and yeah, and then when it comes down to the guitar accompaniment, that takes me a little bit longer. I usually use a lot of references. Like I usually have a vision that like, oh, okay, for my song Joan of Arc, for instance, like I feel like it's going to be this picking pattern and I can hear it. And it's just like I sit down and figure it out. Is it in standard tuning? No, it's an open C. So that was a process. And yeah, so it's kind of stretched out over time. Takes me a while to get there, but I think every step of the way is really important to figuring that out. And I'm meticulous about lyrics. I rewrite and rewrite often. I try not to rewrite too much though, because then sometimes you can lose meaning when you're being too left brainy about your lyrics. So yeah, it's a process.
Mhm. So what inspired you to write Joan of Arc, and what's to come next from that? Like it's a single now, but it'll be a part of an eventual album. So yeah, just talk about the creation of that album and maybe if there's a theme or but yeah, let's start with Joan of Arc. Talk about what led you to write that song and why you chose that to be your lead single.
Yeah. Uh, So when I started writing the song, I could feel that it was me, and this was my experience with it. I'm sure whoever is listening to it will pick up something different or a different message from it, and that's the beauty of art. But when I was writing it, I felt that I was exploring what it meant to me to, it was a coming of age thing. Like I'm, it's like that Britney Spears song, I'm not a girl, not yet a woman, just thinking about like, what it means to be, growing up and seeing that, I'm not 19 anymore, I'm 28 and I'm going to be 30 soon. And what does that mean to me? And what does it mean to be a woman? And what are some of the baggage that comes with that and the stereotypes that, paint what being a woman is and, what don't I agree with? And, what is imposter syndrome? Why did I feel like it was so hard to call myself a co-producer on my EP, even though I was doing that, I was casting and hiring session players for it. And I was working with Sierra on, what the instrumentation would be, the song treatments and scheduling and all of that. And the mixing part. And I lacked some of the knowledge that Sierra had. So it was amazing to have them on board and to work together on building these things. Yeah, so Joan of Arc is really reflecting on all of that. And a way that I grounded myself in this story is to put myself in the shoes of this really old historical figure I, have a little bit of an obsession. Well, not an obsession. It's just like a big interest in learning about important women historical figures and having those mentors in my life, because I feel like if you don't have those, you have no reference for, who to look up to. Like having people who look like you as your mentors is really important. And Joan of Arc, I loved her story because, I don't know, that it was the fact that there's a lot of like even like modern debate now. There's like a play that came out about Joan of Arc that's loosely based on her story, and the they painted the main. I can't remember what the theater company was anyway, but they're talking about Joan of Arc as potentially a non-binary, gender fluid figure for that community to look up to through this play. And then there's been some controversy around that and creating arguments even now. Like this is a figure from the 1800s, right? Like put it into perspective. But I find that really interesting. I find it interesting that in works of art, we see Joan painted with, an armor skirt, even though technically Joan would have gone into battle wearing men's armor. But for some reason, these artists decided to put her in a skirt just to make her more feminine, right? Which is really interesting to me, how we portray women from the past, stuff that is lost maybe in translation, and also the way that Joan was, first celebrated for leading men into victory in battle, and then promptly executed for doing that and also wearing men's clothes. Is interesting to me. Like, I don't know, that whole thing of like celebrating women and then being like, okay, you're too powerful now, so bye. But like that arc really interested me, and is something that maybe a lot of women can identify with. And yeah, so for me, this song is about exploring what power means, what personal power means. There's a line in the song that says, "Pat me with cool cloths because I got a bad fever. Blame that bear with his paw on my bird feeders," which is kind of like, I guess, my way of talking about vulnerability, and also like generosity that's kind of stereotypically applied to what femininity would be, and then the converse, like being like aggressive, would be stereotypically attributed to the masculine. But then like where do those lines blur? And I'm pulling that into the song was, I don't know, a way for me to explore that. And yeah, I could go on and on about this song. I am really excited about it. I had a lot of fun making it, and I think the way that it connects to the other songs in the EP, it is, on the whole, a coming of age EP. And it's like they say, when you get really personal, it tends to become universal. So it was me exploring that, and just letting myself really think about the I, and then connect it to something a little bit bigger through Joan. But then the other ones, I don't know, it's across the board. Like this one is more of like a traditional folk Americana vibe, and then the other songs start to kind of blur the lines and they start to get more jazzy. But yeah, I don't know how to explain the other ones until they're out, but
That's
it is
great.
coming of age on the whole.
And with like this single coming out and the new EP coming out soon enough, vulnerability presents itself. So what have you learned about vulnerability in terms of you sharing yourself in so many ways, through this interview, through your slam poetry, through getting on stage, everyone looking at you and you doing your thing? Yeah, talk to us about vulnerability and its importance.
Yeah. When I think about this topic, I think about this quote from David Foster Wallace, who wrote that book called Infinite Jest, that just like went cuckoo bananas crazy in the literature world, because it's supposed to have changed modern fiction forever, but whatever. He was important for a few reasons or whatever. And he has this quote that loosely is, you'll become a lot more relaxed when you realize that people think about you a lot less than you think they do. They're too worried thinking about themselves, what they're going to do tomorrow, the kids, or And when I think about that, it immediately calms me down. I'm like, okay, so people are like, if they are gonna judge me, they're gonna judge me for like 5 minutes, and then they're gonna move on to the next thing that's way more interesting. Which, everyone wants to think that you're really interesting, but also it can be really freeing to realize that we're all, you know, not as interesting as we think we are. Or to not be so worried, that people are going to think about you constantly and like judge you harshly constantly. It's like, yeah. And also I feel kind of free because I'm, just an indie artist from Winnipeg. No one's putting me on the cover of ET tonight and saying that I wrote a song about a historical figure, Joan of Arc, and I'm making grand statements about her, and I'm the worst. No, no one's doing that. So yeah, that helps.
They're not doing it yet. You're not on
Yeah,
like
they're not doing it yet.
so
Yeah.
what's your vision now that you're going all in on your music career? What's your vision for this?
Um, yeah, my vision, well, just to see this all the way through, whatever you do, you need to give it 110%. Uh, Another teaching that I really love, I think it's the four, uh, oh no, I forget it again. It's like a Mayan set of teachings, and it's the four truths. What the
Oh, the
four?
four agreements.
The
God
four
makes all things.
agreements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the
Protect.
agreements is always do your best no matter what. So if you're sick, do your best. If your best is like you just get out of bed and make yourself, a salad so that you eat something, like always do your best. So I feel like I'm operating at my best now, and I'm going to continue to do that. And if it comes a time where it's like I no longer have the creative impulse to do the music anymore, then I'll stop. But it seems like it's really strong. So I'm just following it and, abiding by that for as long as I can. So the goal is to just do my best, I guess. And I guess that's kind of like a generalization. It's not very specific, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to do every day.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I feel it kind of ties into the title of these conversations, Welcome to the Winner Circle. And for me, the winner circle is doing your best to embrace process over destination. We live in a very destination oriented society. When I get this job, um, when I get this amount of money, when I get this car, this house, this record deal, like whatever, like I'll be happy. And then when we get there, it's like maybe there's a momentary like dopamine, like feel good spike, and then it's like, and now it's a now what? And I feel we're missing the sweetness of the song, and that's the process. And this just taking a look at your cards in front of you in the now and moving forward or not, like doing your best with what you're given. And it doesn't have to be gigantic gestures, it just has to be forward rather than a non-doing. And so yeah, that's what the winner circle means to me, is just embracing the process and moving forward in some way, no matter how no matter how big or small, but just moving forward. What does winning mean to you, and what does winning look like for you in your general day today?
Wait, winning. Yeah, it's funny. I don't often talk about winning in my day to day, but I think winning to me is not being defeated, but not being defeated by your own self, like your own narratives, your own like misguided perceptions about who you are, like who you really are underneath all of the illusions of the world is, like a being with creativity and, like immense capacity for connection with other human beings. And isn't that remarkable? And like every time that like other narratives kind of insert themselves, like, yeah, like you said, like, oh, I need this record deal, or I need this, or I need to be perceived this way, like when you get into that ego stuff. And sometimes ego is helpful, like I'm not saying ego is inherently bad, but yeah, anytime you get down to what it really means to connect with people, or for me, whenever I get to actually connect with people and be here in the now, I'm winning. I'm winning. I'm just winning. So when I'm here in the now and I'm present and I'm feeling joy for life, like it's so hard to feel joy for life. Sometimes we get caught up in like And sometimes we feel bad when we feel joy because other people maybe aren't feeling joy. And we're like, oh, I should feel bad. And it's like, well, yes, empathy is important, but also like let yourself feel joy, you know, for F's sake, that's also when I'm winning, is when I'm feeling joy and I'm spreading joy in the ways that I can. Yeah.
Beautiful. You've mentioned a lot of like mentors and helpers you've met along the path. So just take a moment to acknowledge some of these people. There's tons, so we don't need to go through them all. But who are some notable like mentors or helpers that you've met on the path? Like who were they, and what were your primary takeaways you learned from them that you've incorporated into your being?
Yeah. Um, I feel like I should be holding an Oscar for this. I would like to thank the Academy and my mom and my dad. No, I actually would like to thank my mom and my dad. Hi, thanks. You birthed me and made sure I had clothes and food and water. That's amazing. And my sister, awesome person. Um, Grandparents, all of that, whole family. But in this phase, I guess, career path that I've chosen right now with songwriting and music, I have a lot of thanks to give to Sierra Noble for deciding to co-produce this EP with me and spend so much time on it. They have so much on the go and they're producing for other artists, and they're an artist themselves, making music and writing music, and Madeline Roger as well, for engineering the project. Madeline is also a super busy singer-songwriter, and has, beautiful art that's coming out very soon. I believe a new album. So follow for that. And then, of course, all the session players who are on the songs, and all the friends who have come out to my funny shows, everyone who bought a ticket for my single release house concert. Like, you're so important. You're the reason why I'm like continuing to like shout about this release everywhere. It's like I could easily just keep this to myself and be happy, but you're coming to shows, so thank you. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. There's lots of people. My teachers from high school, my English teacher, Ms. Wake, who, made me share my poems with her. And that brought me to Poetry Slam. And yeah, the people who came up to me at Poetry Slam and said, I think you should be artistic director now. And I was like, really? Me? Those people. And yeah, just my whole community here in Winnipeg, Good and Plenty, Manitoba Music. Without those resources, I would not feel like I could take on this alone. So yeah.
Right on. So we've talked a lot about like the highlights and some great stuff, things that have happened to you on your path. Let's take a look at the other side of that, and let's talk about some challenges you met on your journey. Whatever comes to mind, let's talk about a couple of challenges that you've encountered, how you overcame them, and what you learned from them.
Okay. I guess one big challenge was when I was 18, I decided I was going to go to musical theater school, with not very much money, like as much money as I made as at the coffee shop. And I told my parents I'm going to go do this. And they were like, I think this might be a difficult change for you, and we're not sure if you should do it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it, because that's what you do when you're an ungrateful teenager and you're mad at your parents for everything, even though they literally did nothing except raise you. And then I went to school, and then it was hard, of course. I was in a city, I knew nobody, I did have roommates. It was challenging. I wasn't eating properly, again, like as much as I should have. And so I came back home, kind of defeated, went back to college, but college ended up being a good thing. So the challenge, led me to also having the ability to do a communications path alongside the art path. So that helped. But it was a challenge, and I did need some recovery after coming back from school for sure. So that took a while. And what's another challenge? I mean, I think it's pretty good that I'm hard pressed to think about the challenge right now. But I know I had lots. And yeah, I think also, yeah, the challenge was also, what I've already talked about is, I was trying to find a way to make art while also trying to keep financially stable as I could. Like I don't believe in the starving artist mentality. I don't think that's romantic. I don't think it's fun. I don't want artists to starve. But often that's like what we see in popular culture and popular rhetoric. So I've been really trying hard with that. When I left college, I did a lot of freelancing. I thought that would give me more time to make art. I ended up spending way too much time trying to build a business. So that was a tricky situation, and I fell on my face. I had some clients. It wasn't continuous. I'm really grateful to the clients that I did have. Shout out to you. Um, and yeah, and circling back to now, I think another challenge was, leaving my job and finding my new job at MMF Canada. I feel like I got really lucky. I took a risk and went to Breakout West Music Conference and then met my employer there. So I took big risks to get back. But yeah, there's been lots of challenges along the way. But I'm grateful to them. You kind of have to fall on your face to realize that you can survive a lot. So yeah.
Mhm. What helps you get up once you fall on your proverbial face? Like what is that? What are the yeah, what are the fundamentals that help you get back up on your feet and moving forward?
Um, well, I remember when I fell on my face with uh, clients and freelancing the first time. I guess I'm back there now, but I feel like I can manage it a lot better now because I've failed before. But when I did, quote unquote, fail before, I mean, there's failure is perception, right? But I went to my mom and I was like all upset. I was like, oh man, you're probably so disappointed in me. And she was like, no, I think you're fine. Like you're doing great. And just having that reassurance. So to lean on people when you're feeling down and to not be embarrassed. Like everyone falls on their proverbial face, and it's not as bad as you think. And you can come back from it. So yeah, to again, I've talked about this before: community, opening up to people, being vulnerable. Sometimes I have a hard time doing that. I want to be perfect. I want to look like I'm doing perfectly, but showing people that you're not is, can really help because, often, you'll find someone who also needs help too, and then you feel a little less alone.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for showing up so authentically and with your vulnerability as well, because it's really the point of the show is to show like people listening and tuning along, like these are these guests who've done great things, like whether they've written a book or they're releasing an album or a single or like when they won a championship or whatever. They only see them on at the destination. They don't recognize the path, the journey that they've made it to that has gotten them there. And when we take time to really look at um how we got there, the process there, we find so many commonalities in our stories, and it really highlights we are not alone. We're not in this alone, and we're all in this together. um this brings me to my final questions. I have a final three questions that I like to ask all guests, and we got to that point. So, through all the highs and lows that is this life, that is your hero's journey, what do you feel has been the greatest life lesson you've learned on the path thus far that you feel called in this moment to share with us?
There's been so many lessons. Called to share right now. Um, yeah, what am I called to share right now? I think, you know, it's gonna sound really, whimsical or hokey, but whatever things you're saying about yourself in your head are probably true because you're making it true. So if you want your external world to change, you really need to change whatever world you're building in your head. And heaven knows I've been building all sorts of crazy narratives in my head growing up and when I was an insecure teenager, but you really gotta reshape that stuff. And it's a long process, and you're gonna find yourself tripping back on old narratives all the time. But um, yeah, if you believe that you can write and record an EP and be a co-producer and find your team of women and non-binary folks to help you make it, you're gonna find them because you're just gonna have, your you're a horse pulling a carriage and you got blinders on. You're not going to see all the other stuff floating around, all the naysayers in the nose, because you're just going to be focused on the why and the what. And those people are going to find you. And so, yeah, and it could take 2 years, it could take 5 years, it could take 10 years. And just like time is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. You know, we have our like physical ages, but we have our like energetic ages, I guess, and it shows. So like, don't get hung up on that. You know, gosh knows I'm thinking about 30. It's looming. It's like a looming presence. It's like coming up over the horizon. I'm like, no, you stay down.
Yeah.
But we're making it. We're gonna get the EP out before 30. Just kidding. But like, yeah, just reframe your narratives. Whatever you say about yourself is gonna be true. So be careful about what you say and be impeccable with your word. Like the four. Yeah,
I agree with that's
yeah.
right.
Be
Yeah.
impeccable.
Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah,
Don't make assumptions.
yeah. Don't make assumptions.
Always do your best.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question. In 3 words, it doesn't have to be a sentence or anything, but just 3 words. How would you describe the experience you were having on this earth?
In 3 words.
Yeah. What 3 words would describe the experience you're having on this earth? And you could elaborate on these words or not.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, I like the question. It's an interesting creative question, so I appreciate that. My experience. Well, right now, some words that I like that I'm leaning into is like humor, having a sense of humor, slash joy, you know, and whimsy in your life is a good thing because things can get really heavy real fast. And so having, you know, even a dark sense of humor about things really helps, and letting people have a dark sense of humor about things is nice too. Just allowing joy to seep in the weirdest places is nice. So yeah, I guess whimsy, a little whimsy never hurt anyone.
Okay.
Whimsy is the word. Sorry, I was unpacking that.
That's a good thing.
Uh, yeah, and community, I've talked about that a lot at length, and um, you know, determination. Yeah,
Can you
just
elaborate on that?
yeah, determination. Yeah, I feel like along my creative journey, there's been, you know, I remember a teacher saying to me, you know, you'd be better being a writer, you know, just a writer than this. And that impacted me and it stopped me from doing something. Or other people had said something about, you know, my art before and saying, like, you should really be doing this. But like all those shits kind of ruin everything. So determination to me is just like knowing what you need to do and just following it to the end, you know, again, yeah, not letting those other outside opinions impact what you're doing.
Right on. Whimsy, community, and determination. Those are the words that describe your reality right now. Oh wait, the final question. We've examined your past, we've examined the now, and we're gonna go fast forward into time, and we're gonna be alongside an 85-year-old Larysa Musick. Who is that 85-year-old woman? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy that you've left here in your 85 years? And what is the predominant feeling, vibration in your being?
Oh man. Um, I don't know. I hope I like have like a really good sense of humor. I feel like either you get old and then you're bitter and disgruntled, or you're old and you're just like, well, that was an interesting ride. So I kind of hope I have that feel about me. Maybe I'm like even weirder than I am now. You know, I have an extraordinary, you know, eclectic look about me. Maybe I'm like, I don't know, writing a book about, I don't know, something crazy. Maybe I'm like a woman version of Dr. Seuss at that point. I don't know, like, but taking things in stride. Yeah, maybe like that. Just
Okay.
yeah.
Who are you surrounded by?
Um, family and friends, I hope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And where are you?
What's that?
Where are you?
Um,
Environment look like?
I'm in a proverbial meadow of many flowers. Yeah, yeah.
And
Just
then, okay.
no, that's okay. That's it.
And the dominant feeling within your being as that 85-year-old woman, what is the dominant vibration emanating from your center?
Joy.
Perfect. Let's be with that joy for a moment longer. I really want you to step into that 85-year-old Larysa, um, in that place we just spoke of. And I'm going to bring us back to the present. And that 85-year-old woman, she sends you a message. What does she whisper into your ear?
Have your cake and eat it too.
What's that look like? Have your cake and eat it too. What does that mean?
That was the first phrase that came to my head, so I just followed it. It means, um, you know, again, like feel your joy. Try not to feel bad about feeling joy. We all need a little more joy, and we need to be spreading more of it. Have your cake and eat it too. Um, I don't know. I love sugar. I don't know if anyone else, shout out to anyone else who has a sugar problem, but like, yeah, eat your cake.
Eat your cake and enjoy the ride, enjoy the process,
Eat
enjoy
your
the journey.
cake. Yeah, also eat a vegetable, but also eat a cake. Yeah.
Balance is important.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Your single Joan of Arc is out now from when this is going to be released, and that's on Spotify. Your
And
house
all the
show
platforms.
on all the platforms. Your house show is this week, April 6th, but it's sold out. So just stay tuned to find more. And they can find more about you at Larysa Musick, and that's music with a K. That's a very unique name that you've been blessed with. And is there any last closing words for you, or anywhere else they could find you?
Um, you are all winners too. So go and win.
Beautiful. True that. And to
Yeah.
every close every episode, we bring our fist in and we
Oh,
step into the circles. Digital fist bump. Boom.
oh, okay, cool.
Choice. We could all be winners. And it just starts with that forward process, that forward progress. Do something. Be something. Embody that. Um, now. Thank you so much. And
Thank
that's a
you.
wrap on today's call.